Hi, everyone. Just a quick little intro before today's beautiful episode. I had so much fun with this guest. Learned a lot, and yeah, I just love these soul connecting moments on the show. Always makes my heart smile. So yesterday, January 25th, 2024, my book launched. Yay! So it is called The Caregiver Chronicles, and it was released by me and 21 other authors. There were 22 of us together that we each wrote a chapter. Mine is chapter 21 when you go purchase the book on paperback or download it on Kindle on Amazon. But it launched #1 in paperback and new releases. And #2 in Kindle in new releases. Yes, #1 in new release in aging parents category. So yeah, it's so cool to see #1 new release. It also hit #1 in elder care, also hit #1 in parent and adult-child relationships. So very exciting stuff. Yes, so we're having a book launch party tomorrow on Saturday, January 26th. So yeah, come join us. We'd love to have you there. Authors are going to read bits of chapters. And I believe we're doing a book giveaway as well. And we'll have a question and answer as well. Lots more to share, but I'll save that for next week so we can get to today's episode. All right, enjoy the show. Welcome, everybody, to the Healing Place podcast. I'm your host, Teri Wellbrock, and I am super excited to have with me today Jacob Norby, and he is a writer, creative guide, and so much more. So welcome, Jacob.
Thank you so much, Teri. I love the name of your podcast.
Oh, thanks. I hear that often, and it truly is. I just had talked to you a few minutes before we hit record that there's just such a need. People are just out there seeking for hands to hold and guides, which I love it that you're a creative guide with light and love and hope and healing. And so yes, it's just such a gift that you offer others. So thank you. So speaking of that, what is your role as a creative guide?
Well, it's actually a great question because there's a distinction for me between I'm not a therapist or a clinician in that way. And also there are so many people who hold the role of coach in this world, and that's really a powerful role and very needed. And what I've discovered is that the work I do with people tends to be a lot more like depth psychology, where we are sitting together and working with their own intuition. So it's not me telling them, here's how to modify your behavior so you get a certain outcome. It's more of a, let's go inward. Let's find out what your true values are, who you really are. And then we work from that, because Teri, so many people show up with the goals or the values that were handed to them from a very early age, a lot of times between the ages of 0 and 8, which I'm sure you know. These things get implanted, and we walk through the rest of our lives being guided and often even controlled by things that when we go into self-discovery, we find, wow, the life I know I'm meant to live is different than the one that I've been living. And so that to me is such an honor to sit with people and sort that out.
Oh, I love that. I just was talking the other day, and this is whatever reason, it popped back into my head. When my mom used to introduce my sister and I when we were kids, she would always say, "This is Teri, the smart one, and this is Katie, the pretty one." And
Oh my
so
God.
we
Yeah.
grew up like I didn't hear so much that I was smart as, "Oh my God, I'm the ugly one." Like, I was like, we were
Wow.
just told. And so my sister, we would talk about this through the years that she just didn't give herself enough credit because she's brilliant. I mean, yes, she's incredibly artistic. I was talking about her artwork, but she's so smart. And she's just now headed back and working on finishing up a degree with plans to go on and get even a higher her master's after that. So Yeah, you're right. Like we carry around almost like those labels, those things we've been told about ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. When we really go into discovery on that, Terry, it's, we find that we're wearing so many hats in life, or so many roles or masks, whatever we want to call those things. And so often, like you just said, here's the smart one, here's the pretty one. And also how those roles or labels are internalized, and I know that we have this interesting negativity bias. So it makes it so much easier for us to select and then focus on the things that we don't love, or the things that reflect back poorly to us. It's much easier to say, yeah, I'm just not very good at that, or I'm not very creative, or I'm not very, whatever the I'm not very is. And we tend to focus on those details rather than the rest of the value that we show up with.
Oh, for sure. I said I always joked I couldn't draw a straight line with a ruler because I always compared. Like my
Yeah.
dad was an incredible artist and he could draw. Oh my gosh, he'd draw cartoons and draw such great pictures. And I was in awe. And then my sister, obviously phenomenal. And so I would just be like, oh my gosh, look at this little clay pot I made in fourth grade art class that's like crooked and looks horrible and in my mind. So yeah, but I love it that one of your missions is to help people unlock their creativity and to discover it's not just about, oh, can you draw? Oh,
Yeah.
can you make a piece of pottery? It's about so much more than that.
Yeah. In fact, I'd love to, everyone listening right now, if you just, unless you're driving or changing a baby's diaper or something dangerous, um, maybe close your eyes and just take one long, deep breath with me. Just breathe in and breathe out. And as you feel that, understand that you're bringing attention to your life force, the feeling of being alive, of breathing. And imagine your body where part of your body didn't get blood flow or the flow of oxygen into it. What would happen to that part of your body? It would begin to atrophy and die. And a tree, if the sap doesn't flow through every limb and twig and branch, that part dies. And so if you can imagine that life force that you're feeling as you breathe, that prana, that is the creative force. That's what makes your eyes light up, and it's what spins galaxies. And it's meant to flow through every part of your life. And so as you breathe just a little bit more, I want you to just let your imagination and your attention select some places in your life that don't feel artful. And as you breathe, imagine that creative force in you wants to flow into those areas and restore them, heal them, bring them into joy. And with that in mind, understanding that creativity isn't an attribute, it's an experience. It's not just a word, it's a feeling. You can begin to become the artist of your life in every area, not just in one little thing called painting or writing or drawing or singing or whatever we call creativity. It's a deeper force than that, and it's meant to flow through every part of your life.
Well, that's so beautiful. And I have to say, I kept seeing photography, the
Mhm.
camera, like that was so cool. But it was like capturing little snippets of life and beauty. And that, so as you were talking, it was like, oh yeah, it's like in my mind, I mean, my vision was that as we travel along, at least I travel along, I've learned a lot of mindfulness and I practice mindfulness. And so stopping to just enjoy that little ladybug on the leaf or the
Mm.
dragonfly flitting through the air. So, but capturing it with my camera and my mind.
Yes. Terry, I love that you take photographs. Um, when I go out, I live in Boise, Idaho, and there is lots of hill trails and lots of nature nearby. And one of my great delights is to go and hike or walk through that, especially this time of year when the colors are changing, and taking photographs. Sometimes I would criticize myself for that and say I should be just being very present in nature. And one thing I realized, it's possible to take a photograph just to post on Instagram, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's also possible to use that camera lens as a tool, as a device to pay deeper attention to life. And that's what I heard you just saying.
Yes. Yeah, it truly did help me. And I had that same conversation,
Mm.
oh, I should be just enjoying this moment. But then I said, no, I love the idea of capturing, because truly, like, I would zoom in on a flower petal and see things that I wouldn't normally see with just the naked eye, and
Yes.
say, oh my gosh, look, I can see the pollen. I can see, or I'd see a bumblebee with its little bumblebee butt sticking out and be like, oh, I can see the pollen specks on it. Like, that's so cool.
I was I'm being reminded as you're talking of this little bit from Mary Oliver, Teri, when death comes, and she says, I was the bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited the world. And what you just described is that it's the bringing attention to a moment, an experience, and by doing so, we make it sacred. We make it open up itself to us. My brother and his wife right now are reading a book on Eros, and it's so exciting to watch him embrace this idea that we can be making love. Like, that energy, we often think of it as sexual or something like that, and it is. But in addition to it, and in the Eastern traditions, the second chakra is where sexuality is housed. It's also where creativity is housed. And so it's so interesting to realize that we can enter into life and begin making love to all the parts of our lives. We can begin to be turned on by a sunrise, by a conversation at work, by a moment like this with you and me connecting and talking about things that matter. We can actually be turned on and begin to make love to life more and more. And to me, that is the underlying essence of creativity.
Oh, I love that, because it's passion and it's
Mm.
love. And I mean, love is the life force of the universe, right? And
Yes.
so, yes, just being able to, I don't know, like just almost like caress with our minds these beautiful moments and these experiences. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. I said, you talked about mountain trails. My son John lives in Denver. And so
Mm.
he loves the mountains and hiking and camping and all of that fun stuff. But when I was on your website and reading up on you and stalking your page, and it just so made me smile, because it so made me think of my son. And it was said something about how you love hiking trails and tacos. It's like, oh my gosh, it's so true.
Oh my God. Teri, my life turned upside down very dramatically in 2008 and 9. And I had been on this course of really chasing down goals and dreams, such as becoming a very wealthy entrepreneur in the financial services area. And I kept waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, terrified. And I couldn't figure out why, because I had all the things. I had just built this beautiful new office and I moved into a new home. And everyone around me said, you're so successful, you're on your way. And I thought, I wonder why I don't feel that. I wonder why it feels terrifying. I wonder why I feel so stuck and off track. And a whole bunch of series of events conspired to, during the financial meltdown, to wipe all that out. And I had the chance to move to Austin, Texas with my then wife and 3 little kids, without jobs, without anything, and go to a place where I wasn't known by anyone else as anything else. And I got to discover who I really am and what really mattered. And it was a fascinating, and I would love to say it was so easy and bright. No, there were many, many moments of darkness and confusion. And what is going to happen? Will any of this ever come back together? And I'm sharing that right now to say that sometimes it's easy for people when they hear words like joy or creativity or something like this. It's like, oh, that's nice. That would be nice for those people when they have the luxury of extra time or money or whatever it is. And the truth is, what I discovered there in Austin, where at times I was taking things to the pawn shop to put gas in my car for the weekend, and I was working 2 or 3 part-time jobs as I began to start writing. What I began to discover, though, is that that was actually the first time in my life I felt free. And I felt free to find out who I really am. And that's where it really began to dawn on me that these, in the book, we talk about the 3 enemies of creativity: socialization, fear of rejection, and those are conjoined twins, and then traumatic experiences and the socialization part. Even if we grow up in a family that's supportive and there's enough money and everything's stable, we still enter socialization before we even learn our own names, of saying, this is who you are, this is what's possible for you, this is what isn't possible for you. And so we begin to internalize those beliefs, and we often find ourselves at 35 or 40 or 45 or some age like that, waking up inside of a life that doesn't feel true, doesn't feel real. And it feels so full of obligations and agreements we've made. There's marriages, there's business partnerships, there's debts, there's all these things. And we feel like there's no way out of those things, and to find a path towards something that feels more real. And I'm sharing this bit of it to say that creative energy that lives in you and me and all of us it actually wants to find a way to help you untangle all of that and find a way forward that feels so deeply real.
Amen. Yes. This podcast is a form of creativity. Yes. And I stumbled upon it, but everything just kept aligning and aligning and aligning and aligning. And I call it my soul work, because truly, yes, this is what sets my soul ablaze. Like, this is what I get excited about. Like, I wake up and go, oh, I have a podcast interview today. I'm like, all right.
It shows, Teri, it shows. It's 8 o'clock in the morning for me, and I've told you I'm getting ready for this big retreat with Anne Lamott and Julia Cameron Sark and these wonderful Alex L. And so my sleep has been disrupted quite a bit lately. I woke up this morning and checked my calendar. I said, "Oh my God, how did I agree to showing up at a podcast 8 o'clock in the morning right before I get on the plane to do this retreat?" And then I came down here and I'm sitting with you. It just felt like the sun came out. So I just want to say that what you just said about it being your soul work, it's palpable. It shows it. I can feel it.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, I feel so blessed to be doing this and to be sitting in this space with, again, beautiful souls like yourself who are just lighting up the world too. And so I don't know. There's just like this magical pull, call it, angel whispers or God or universe or whatever you call it, higher source. It just it pulls it all together, and I love that. So
yeah, me too.
Hey everybody, Teri Wellbrock here, just taking a moment's break to talk to Scott Summers, who's my friend / neighbor here on Hilton Head Island and Senior Vice President of Symmetry Financial Group. And he's, the founder, I guess, of the Summers Agency. And I love it that it's the hashtag the greatest team ever assembled. So
very modest.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. So Scott's here to talk to us today about, I know this is the Healing Place podcast, but as all of you know who are listening in for a long time fan of the show, and for you, those of you who are new, we talk about ways to help ourselves. And this is just such an amazing opportunity for Scott to come on and talk about some ways we can not just help ourselves, but help our families. So welcome, Scott.
Well, I'm so happy to be here, and I really appreciate the partnership. And wow, I feel like part of the family. So thanks for having me here. And speaking of healing, it's working in the business that I've been in for the last almost a decade now. You get to see healing of different sorts, right? Whether it's people recovering from some type of significant health issue, or losing a family member, or trying to correct the debt issue that they have in their family. So we get to help in different capacities there with healing.
For those that don't know, I was an agent back in the day when I lived in Ohio, and did that for a decade, managed an agency, and this has come across my radar. And so I decided to obtain my life and health license here in South Carolina. So I am back in business. I love how Scott said to me the other day, he was like, the open sign is over your head, Teri. So
yeah, and I think that your genuine feeling of wanting to help people is really what's gonna help you and with this business of being able to incorporate this into working with folks that you work with on a daily basis.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, it's just been such a great opportunity. I'm super excited by it. And I call it my soul work because it doesn't feel like work when I'm doing something that is helping others, whether it's my monthly Hope for Healing newsletter or this podcast or narrating, books on healing, or have a new book coming out January 25th and called the Caregiver Chronicles. And that's really going to really have an impact on a lot of people who are in that caretaking role for loved ones. So this is kind of great conversation for you and I to have too, because really we're caretaking for our family and loved ones. And when we make sure that we have things in place, should something happen to us. All right, well, let's dive into some stuff. Let's talk about some specific products. And folks, you can keep tuning into episodes, and I'll put snippets out about the different products. So it'll one way for you to keep coming back and joining the show. Not that you don't already, but you can listen in mid conversation, before conversation. I'll be putting these snippets of conversation out. So first, let's talk about mortgage protection.
Yeah, I think it's a great additive to the portfolio. And sometimes people get mortgage protection confused with mortgage insurance. Mortgage insurance is something that you have to have really to protect the bank in case of you default on a loan. Mortgage protection is really something to add to the portfolio when you take out that big loan. Just did that refinance, and it could be a large burden on the family. And sometimes people have life insurance maybe already in their portfolio. The vast majority of people we speak to already do have some type of life insurance, whether they own the policy or it's through work. That mortgage protection policy is there to kind of make sure that the family's not there holding the bag, per se, if something were to happen. So we can set something up that would pay that mortgage off should something happen. And this was something that some of the banks years ago, up until about 10 years ago, would actually add into the mortgage, and it would be kind of part of the loan. And as you were paying down the loan, it would be a decreasing term policy. When they stopped doing that, they were for people like us that can help kind of go through the different avenues, the different carriers now that offer insurance coverage. They all said, "Hey, we'll offer insurance coverage," and now we can put a policy in place that would cover the mortgage.
Oh, that's so fantastic. Okay, well, everyone, thanks for listening in to our little very informative, wonderful conversations with Scott Summers of the Summers Agency here on Hilton Head Island. And again, go to TeriWellbrock.com. You can find out more information and click some tabs if there's anything specific you want to know about. And I will be in touch with you. And yeah, now back to the show. So you are a writer. I have your book, one of your books here, The Creative Cure, which is pretty awesome. I loved your note that you wrote me inside of it. I'm gonna put it on my socials later, guys. So
Okay, cool.
check it out with links to how to order it. So you've written a number of books, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so The Creative Cure, is that a guide for folks to what we just went through of really closing their eyes and going through the process of finding what their thing is?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes, I feel like it's that, Teri. And what's interesting is my first book was called The Divine Arsonist, and it was autobiographical. It's a novel, but it was deeply autobiographical. And that was trying to share this incredible experience of waking up inside of life. And like the story I just shared about myself, like, oh my God, how do I ever navigate towards something that feels true? The second book was called Blessed Are the Weird, a manifesto for creatives. And that one came from this Blessed Are the Weird poem that I wrote. And in Austin, I pulled over beside the road and these words just kind of came out, and I found an old bill underneath the seat and wrote it down real quick. And eventually, I'd shared a lot of things, Teri, but that one started being shared millions and millions of times. And eventually I realized there's a lot in this little poem that needs to be talked about, that needs to be explained. So I wrote the book, Blessed Are the Weird. This one, The Creative Cure, is the one that feels the most prescriptive, or the most, let's walk through the process together. And so I view each of these as kind of my own journey of self-discovery, self-acceptance, transformation. And so this book was one that I published traditionally, and it was difficult for me because that form of writing is not as easy for me, with, very specific points and chapters and then exercises. So that one actually required a lot of work and a lot of help from my publisher and editor to bring it into that form. And I feel grateful that it's meant to be a very simple guidebook. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been writing my memoir for 10 years. Oh my gosh. And it's, as I write it and put it out there, when I write, I'm just like, bleh, like I put it out, right? And then I'm like, oh, I'll do the editing later. So that's been the process. But mine is one of horrific trauma, and so releasing that is very cathartic
Yes.
for me. But everybody kept saying, why is it taking you so long? I'm like, it's a process. And my mom was still alive. My mom just passed on my birthday this year in March, and it was that final stamp of approval. Like, she was like, Teri, it's time. It's time. Because I kept telling her, Mom, it's going to be our ugly truths. It's going out into the world. So, yeah, so it was nice. But yeah, I understand. Like, there is that. I had gone to a Hay House writing conference, and I had submitted the manuscript. Well, actually, it wasn't a manuscript. It was it was one chapter. And yeah, like the feedback I was getting from editors and so forth, and how like, oh, it has to fit into this square box, and my writing is so not square boxish.
Well, and Terry, I love that. And one thing you said just reminded me, my father died as I was writing my first book also. That was 13 years ago. Yeah. And we had had a lot of healing in our relationship, Terry, but there was still stuff there. I didn't feel as bold about writing and sharing the things that I needed to, even though the book didn't have anything critical about him. There was something, his presence was so such a force and such a sort of critical force in my life, that when he died, I felt much like what you just said. I felt this vast relief of, I wasn't relieved that he had passed, but I was relieved that it was now time for me to step into myself in a new way without him looking over my shoulder in that way.
Yes. Oh, that's so true. I've experienced that same feeling almost. And again, my sister and I have talked about it, like just this this sigh of
Yeah.
relief. Again, I
Yeah.
miss my mom, and I tell her every day, I miss you, mommy. Like, I miss that's little me talking, like, I miss my
Yeah.
mom.
Yeah.
But there was just that
Yeah.
weight lifted. Yeah. Wow.
I have two things, Terry, because so many people, and we're working with this retreat we're doing in Santa Fe, people can join us online. And so we have literally thousands of people from around the world, either in person or online. And I love this. And so many are writing memoirs, and so many are writing memoirs because that was the story of how they transformed, of how they healed. And that means revisiting the scenes of things that were very painful. And what I will often encourage people to do if they're writing a memoir, and this is not direct advice to you, but I want to share it with everyone, because I know so many people have a story to tell and so many people feel hindered. Like, if I tell this whole truth, it's not safe. It will not be safe in the world. It'll hurt my relationships. It'll hurt people I care about, even though they've done things, with me and to me that weren't great. And so one thing that helps a lot with the first draft, and it's helped me over and over again, I still need to remember this, is the first draft is, I'm telling the story to myself. This is where I have the courage and the freedom to tell the story just to myself. That way it doesn't have to come out perfectly. It doesn't have to come out ready for the world. And the second draft, I'm telling the story to myself again. And the third draft, okay, now I'm telling the story where I've told it enough times to myself that I feel like I can tell it to a stranger or a friend. And so holding a draft in that way has been really freeing for me to realize I don't have to write it well the first time. In fact, to try to do that will freeze it up. And Anne Lamott has this amazing bit from her book, Bird by Bird, where she's talking about when people are so afraid of writing about the things that happen to them and it might hurt the people. She says, you own everything that happened to you. Tell your stories. if people wanted you to write warmly about them, they should have behaved better.
I love it. It's so true.
She was teaching a little mini class the other day, and we had done a bird by bird book club, and she popped in as kind of a guest appearance right at the end, and everyone was so excited. But people were asking her that very thing, like, how do I deal with writing a true story, but then, I mean, this is really putting our dirty laundry out there. And she said, oh, honey, here's the thing, people don't really pay attention very much. So she said, what happens is you take a character and you rename them and you give them a different color of hair. And she's like, all the years I've been writing, I've done that with certain characters who really needed not to be outed as a horrible person. I just changed their name and changed a little bit about them. And she's like, I have never one time had the very people I was writing about that felt so obvious to me, I've never had one of them call me and say, what the hell have you just done? She's like,
Right.
people honestly do not know.
That is so good to know, because truly, I mean, you just changed my world with those words of wisdom.
Mm,
Because I feel like I just kept stumbling over myself, because
yeah.
I've been given this message that, oh, your story needs to be out there, Terry. Like, it's such a phenomenal, it's just an intriguing story of triumph, and
Teri, it
the
does
world
need to
needs
be.
it. The world needs it. The world needs it. And so I've been trying to write for the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And people like you and me, and we've read a lot of books and we've studied a lot, and that becomes its own barrier, I think, because we're reading the finished work of so many amazing writers and teachers out there. And so it's so hard to imagine that this pile of messiness that I'm doing as a first or second draft could ever turn into that. And so there's that part we're holding with both hands, like, I want to be free and write it for myself, and I'm also realizing this will eventually be out in the world. And I think that was one of Stephen Pressfield's greatest contributions to me, from one of his books, the War of Art, I think. Um, when he let it slip that he's like, most novels that you read on the shelf have been rewritten 14 to 15 times. That sounds daunting when we think, oh, I have to rewrite the whole thing 14 or 15 times. But he said it's not that. He's like, you're telling the story to yourself the first time, second time, the third time. Now you're telling it again, but you're reshaping it. Now you're bringing your logical mind into it to make it make better sense or to serve the purpose. And I really love that. It relaxed my shoulders a lot when I realized, I don't know why we carry around this crazy myth that good writers or great writers simply sit down and write the perfect thing all at once. It's like, no, literally nobody does that.
Right. It's so
Yeah.
true. Well, I see these ads pop up on Facebook. I wrote my book in 2 weeks and I'm making blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, how? Like, how?
Those are the people who are trying to make you pay a lot of money to write a book.
Right, right, right. And I'm falling for the ad.
Well, it's seductive. It's like, I'm in the middle of this thing that feels really hard and slow. If this person's saying I can use a magic bullet and suddenly have my bestseller written in 45 minutes or whatever.
Right, right. Oh my gosh. Well, I could sit here and talk to you for, I'm sure, days on end, and I have to tell you, when you said Sark sitting over on my corner, I'm gonna go grab it just because, and I can edit me
Please.
out in just a second. Oh, hold on. Ah, The Bodacious Book of Succulents by
Oh
Sark.
my
It's
God.
like the pages literally are filled with like my writing along with hers. So just
Hang
tell her
on,
I said
hold that
hi.
up. Hold that up, Terry. No, keep holding it if you don't mind. I'm going to take a quick screenshot because I'm going to talk to Sark in a little while here. And when I do, I want to show her this. That will touch her heart so much.
Oh, please tell her I said hi and I love her book so much. I mean,
I
she
will.
really helped me in a lot of ways back in the early 2000s, and yeah, really, really helped me survive some really, really difficult stuff. So
Well, and Terry, that's the medicine. We're talking about writing through the things and sharing them. Um, as you know, Susan Sark lived through horrific trauma as a child. And I was in her magic cottage in San Francisco a couple of months ago. And I love the medicine that she carries with her. And that's because she chose to alchemize all of that pain and then begin to share the alchemy, the actual essence of the healing. And so I don't want this to sound like direct advice, but please write your book, Teri. The world
Oh,
does need it.
oh, you got me teary.
Mm.
Oh, I will. Thank you.
Well, and to everyone here, if your thing isn't writing, if it's not art, if it's not, in some way, I just want to say that your aliveness, you coming into who you really are and becoming more alive inside of your life, that's medicine. When you walk out of your house, let's say that you never have a creative endeavor like writing a book or making a movie or whatever we think that is, but you begin to take this sensibility, this consciousness into the next interaction with your child, into the way you prepare your meal, into going out back and watering your flowers. And let's say you walk out your door and you never talk to one person about becoming a more creative, alive person. You simply are that. You be it in the world. Your presence is medicine. You spread health around you. And this is a biological fact, Teri, that the energy, the power in a healthy cell is multiple times that of a diseased cell. And one cell in a body coming into its health begins to spread health to the other cells it's connected to naturally without even trying. It's just a natural process. It's biology. And I just want every one of us, if we can remember this as we go through our days, the more that I bring health, healing, joy into myself, I actually then walk out into the world and become the medicine this world needs. And I don't have to go out to change the world. I simply need to be in my own health, my own joy.
Love, love, love that message, because it is, my mom was the most Catholic human I'd ever met in my entire life, but she loved Saint Teresa. And it was her message was, that, to, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot. Right now, my mom is just shaking her head like, Teri, I can't believe it. I'm even named after Saint Teresa. Like, but it's doing, do little things with great love. And so it's just about like doing, just existing and in doing what other people might think are little things. Like, again, like you said, watering your flowers or whatever it is, but you do it with great love, and it just radiates. We're all connected in this energy. So yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, I certainly have just feel very blessed to have you here today and meet with you and sit with you. So thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity, Teri. It's one of the great joys of my life to reflect the truth and the beauty of those around me. Look in this mirror and realize that no matter how many different ways the world tells you you're not enough, you're not safe, you don't belong here, look in this mirror. It's not me, it's you. And so the more people, I feel like, if we can go out into this world with that sensibility, with that understanding that who I really am is enough, and the moments I spend each day connecting to that, even just for a few moments of mindfulness or journaling or whatever it is, that actually helps me remember who I really am.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, I know you've given us so many tidbits and wonderful words of wisdom, but is there anything else that you wanted to touch upon that we haven't had a chance to yet?
Probably only that I have this creative self-journaling practice that's no cost, and I'll give you a link you could put in show notes if you want to. I would love to invite people to download it and use it. It's a very simple process. And people who do morning pages, the artist's way or other things, you don't have to replace, you don't have to do both. I had Julia Cameron look at this process and she said, oh my God, yes, of course, people can do that in morning pages. It's 3 simple questions. But I also have a guided visualization. And part of the reason that came up right now, it's like, wonder why those are last words. It's because I love to offer people genuine practices, things they can experience in themselves, because like Carl Jung said, most therapy never reaches below the level of the chin. Most of it stays in our heads. And so if you're wanting to pull the thread of who you really are, of your creative nature, of asking yourself, what would I love to create in my life, rather than just talk about it, I want to offer you this small gift so that you can begin to experience that and find the answers and the wisdom and the creativity inside of yourself.
Oh, that's wonderful. And again, I know we're going over allotted half hour, but I so have to share this with you only because I'm feeling intuitively moved to do so. So after my dad had passed in 2009, I got a message within probably 6 or 7 months of him passing. A friend said, I don't think I'm weird, but your dad gave me a message that there's a message for you in the blue book. And I was like, a blue book? Oh my gosh, my dad was such a reader and writer. And I was like, we're going to find, I had boxes upon boxes of books. So I was going through these boxes and shaking books, like trying to find, couldn't find anything. So then I said, and he wrote he wrote in his books and like in every margin, every page. And I was like, how am I going to find this unless it's highlighted in yellow and says, Teri, pay attention. So I let it go. And I'm not kidding. Like I just said, God, I'm just going to put it in your hands. When it's meant to find me, it will. Maybe like 2 or 3 years later, sitting at my desk writing my book, had my feet up on my desk, and I was like, oh, I really need some inspiration. I feel so stuck, blah, blah, blah. And I looked over, and on my bookshelf, a bunch of little knickknacks, but I saw the top of a blue book. And so I said, oh my gosh. And so I like pushed everything aside and pulled this book. It was my dad's. He was a Jesuit brother for 8 years, and it was his New Testament. And it was just this solid blue cloth cover, beat up old book. Nothing else written on it. And so I opened it up and I was like, oh, he probably wrote on every page of this book, flip, 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 flip. He wrote on one page, and I blew it up, and it says, my ability to write, what am I doing with it? And I said, and that's his handwriting. And I was like, I got goosebumps when I talk about it, because I said, okay, Dad, I got it. All right, I got it. Thanks.
Teri, I have goosebumps. Oh my God, what an amazing message to receive.
Yeah, that one was pretty wild. That I was like, so I'm sure he's still standing here like, well, come on, kid. So when you just said write your book, that's why I instantly got so teary-eyed, because I was like, oh, Dad.
Yeah. Oh, Dad, thank you.
Right.
Teri, I've just loved being here with you. Thank you for having me on your podcast. And I just want to say, everyone listening, thank you for being here. We need you right now.
Yes, thank you. So how do folks get a hold of you? How do they find your books?
Oh, probably the easiest is jacobnordby.com. A lot of people go Norby and then they don't find it. So yeah, jacobnordby.com is probably the easiest place to find all the things.
Awesome. All right.
I'll
And in
send
show
you a
notes, I'll
link
have
to
that link.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
okay. No,
I've-
I'll just make sure there's a separate link for the
Yes.
journaling program. I'll make sure you have that as well.
Yes. Yeah. Everybody check show notes, and I'll be sure to put it out on socials as well so that everyone can find that. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, just such a joy. My heart just is overflowing. So thank you for everything, for being here and all you do. So, all right.
Thanks for helping me get my day started really well, Teri.
All right. Good. All right. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us today on the Healing Place podcast. And remember, until next time, be gentle with yourself. Thanks. Bye-bye. Hey, everybody. Teri Wellbrock here. Just wanted to thank you again for being a part of this healing space and my hashtag Hope for Healing journey. Thank you for sharing, liking, inviting others to join, listening in. You've really helped this show blossom. It has now been downloaded in 136 countries and is in the top 2% globally out of 3.2 million shows, which is just amazing. And it's all because of you and your tuning in and inviting others and sharing and liking and loving. And your reviews on Apple really help too. My goal is to hit 100 5-star reviews by the end of the year, and I am closing in on that. So if you are listening in on Apple or Apple Podcasts, please go and rate the show and leave a review if you absolutely love it. And I would be most appreciative. Also, if you would like to receive my monthly Hope for Healing newsletter, please be sure to go to teriwellbrock.com. It's TERI, just one R, WELLBROCK.com. And I have a gift to send you for signing up for that monthly Hope for Healing newsletter. Plus, there are many other resources listed on that page, including a resource library. All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.